Good day, Mob. This post is about Culligan Tanda. Now, towards the end of April going into May, Culligan Tanda was suspended. And he was suspended because of a discussion he had with the East CP governor that didn't sit well with the higher-ups, meaning the chief executive of FM 100 and his superiors at the telecom management. And Culligan Tanda was issued a 3-week suspension notice without pay. The FM 100 chief executive felt that it was acceptable to suspend him and further penalize him by cutting off his ability to feed his family. Culligan Tanda spent 3 weeks on suspension, not working during this time. His show on FM 100 won the best radio show on Media Freedom Night. And at the end of the 3rd week, Culligan Tanda returned to work, only to be given his termination notice. Now, the termination notice cited several reasons for his dismissal. The first point was a lack of moderation. And the statement said there were no scripts, no talking points, no structured moderation were developed. And this resulted in unvetted, speculative and politically charged broadcasts that undermined the editorial integrity of the program. Now, bear in mind that Culligan Tanda has been doing this for a very long time, having taken over from the great Roger Hawafa. He's a seasoned professional. And for those not in radio, it's quite difficult to script a live show. You don't know exactly how it will unfold, and you can't actually put words into the mouths of guests or in the minds of guests. You can't influence it in any way. I guess the only way you can influence the show is through a rundown where you talk, this is where we will have music, this is where we will talk, this is where the station ID will be played, and that's basically a script already. And you don't know exactly, as I said, you don't know exactly how that will unfold, the live show will unfold, and that's the beauty of live shows. It's very different from a scripted show, something where you write him and record him. It's very different from all that. Now, the thing about Culligan's job is this. I am a journalist. I write stuff, edit, and I put the material on platforms. Culligan's job is a broadcaster. Culligan's job is very different from mine. Culligan takes different opinions, puts them on a platform, and they are aired a lot of times unedited, because it's live. How can you edit? So that's the difference between a broadcaster and a journalist. Now, a lot of people are saying he's a journalist and all that. His is a very different profession. And at the end of airing those opinions, then the public is allowed to call in and discuss the issues and then decide which opinion they favor most, and they make the decision. That's how a democracy works. That's how our democracy works. And that's the beauty of unscripted radio. And Culligan performs his role as a talkback show host as per his job description. And when you talk about scripting such a show, you might get a rundown, And as I said, here's where you play music, here's where you play the station ID. And one of the things that was stated in the statement, the public statement, was that they didn't have talking points. Okay, they might have talking points, but if the host finds that there's a subject that needs exploring and they need to discuss it, the host will take the show and follow that path until that subject has been explored on live radio. And that part of the show, maybe, he finds that it'll be beneficial to the audience. It'll be educational to the audience. That's why he does that. And that's the skill of a talkback radio host. That is why you hired Culligan. Of course, you have guidelines and ethical boundaries that you don't cross. And as far as I know, there was no breach of ethics or balance, because Culligan simply took discussions from Parliament and put them on live talkback radio. Whether the show was speculative or politically charged is another matter, open to debate. We are in a democracy, and much of what people say, much of what politicians will say will be politically charged and will get on broadcasts. we need to get used to that in a democracy. And to me, our democracy has gone backwards because people want to suppress. Second point was neglect of internal communications. It stated that the designated content creator was not informed or involved in the vetting process, that the Kalang CEO and senior content leadership were unaware of the broadcast topic. The chief executive is understood to have met with Governor Bird at the reception. If you're in that position, then you should be aware of the politics that's happening in Parliament and outside, and the narratives on social media and everything around it. You should have a dashboard view of everything. And to me, it sounds like the CEO was unaware of the broadcast topic. Third point was the breach of suspension conditions. It's alleged that while under formal suspension, Mr. Tanda used the company's official letterhead to respond to disciplinary actions. Now, this is open to debate. Should he or shouldn't he use the official letterhead? If there's no policy governing it, then what's the problem? He was still an employee of FM 100 when he used the official letterhead, and it's also alleged that he circulated the confidential documents via social media. I know for a fact that Culligan didn't circulate those documents, and people know that he didn't, actually post about them. He talk about his suspension. I even called him up and asked him if he was going to make a public statement. He said no. He was going to follow internal processes and exhaust all internal processes before making a statement. So he never once released those statements publicly. Now, the fourth point was conflict of interest. It was stated that Mr. Tanda admitted to having met privately with guests prior to the broadcast. It's a very badly written statement. And as a producer, you have to meet with the talent before they go on air. You have to have those discussions, discuss what's going to go on air. And if you say it's a conflict of interest to meet with the talent before you go on air, the meeting can take place on Zoom because we're in the 21st century. It can be a phone call. It can be, a meeting over coffee where you discuss what's going to happen and how you want this to happen. Discuss the talking points before the program goes on air. So to say you can't meet with that person and not put the program on air, something is really wrong. As I said, that can be through a physical meeting or a phone call, and to me, this whole statement here is an attempt to discredit a fine professional who's been working in this capacity for many years. It looks bad on the company. It looks bad on the management. Now, let me say this about media management. If you're a chief executive of a media organization in Papua New Guinea, you have to be that buffer. You are the buffer between the politics on the outside and your staff. It's not a place for the timid or the faint-hearted. You deal with the politics every single day. Every single day. If you're an editor, you deal with the politics outside and how it affects you. So you have to be the shield against everything that's happening outside, and you have to shield your employees. You have to shield your team. But in this case, Culligan Tanda was the sacrificial lamb, for people who wanted to keep their jobs. They took Culligan Tanda, threw him under the bus, suspended him without pay, and then proceeded to terminate him. Because, of course, there are people without guts in those positions. There's a mention of internal investigation reports or an investigation that happened. Now, what the findings are of this investigation, I don't know. I've spoken to Culligan asking him if he has seen the contents of those investigations, and if he was going to respond to them. He hasn't seen them apparently. So he's just written a letter of appeal through and sent it to the chief executive of the company. They keep mentioning policy, and I don't think they have a policy guideline. Mane am making one of something straight na yubla rausimem. Em question lumi emulsem. Emi making one of something wrong na yubla rausimem. Suppose emi kisim one pla opinion na putim lo front na nar pla opinion and putim ken na em yubla paini mulsem emi sambla lain iksipen lo displa, then puti plus kila na imi discuss ima. So this statement was released in a full page ad yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. But to me, it's an attempt to discredit one person and justify the reasons of suspension and eventual termination. My final word to the young talent employed by media organizations, owned by Telecom PNG, don't waste your time there. If you have an opportunity to go somewhere, take your talent and go elsewhere. There are opportunities available that you can take. You can build your own audiences. Don't stay in those companies because the higher-ups, as they said, the management, the board of Telecom PNG, FM 100, does not care about the role of media and democracy. And that's a fact. So find some place that you can go. Get the experience, leave, starve that place of talent. Your talent is not worth existing in a toxic environment that will throw you under the bus at their own convenience for the safety of their jobs. And that's all.